Now, today is the beginning of a new approach with respect to the ART project that is reflective, I hope, of the campaign that I ran and also the kind of administration that we want to run. And that approach is based on being transparent about what is going on. That approach is also reflective of the two-way nature of that transparency. Today we are going to share with you a whole lot of answers, but they beg a lot of other questions, and we do not have answers to every question. And it's going to take some time for us to get those answers, and we will, and we're working on it. But I want everyone to realize that when we go through the challenges that we're facing, this is going to be an endeavor that our city is going to have to deal with and fix probably for at least the next year. So we're in this for the long run, whether we like it or not. Now, going forward, we're going to do occasional deep dive press conferences on ART. This is the first of that kind. And we're probably going to have another one when we have enough information that it's sort of worth having one because we have new answers. And so they might be every month, every 6 weeks, something to that effect. But this issue is complex, and to be transparent, it's going to take some additional time. And so we'll be doing regular briefings on ART whenever we have new information to share. So when I decided to become mayor, I met with people all over this community. And they all voiced their concerns in many ways that Albuquerque is going in the wrong direction. While public safety was definitely the biggest concern for folks, there's no doubt that I heard my fair share about art and its impact in the community. But when I took this office, it was important for me and my team to review thoroughly the projects that we inherited, from IDO to DOJ to our unfortunate $40 million budget deficit and now ART. Now, public safety is our number one priority, but this project is so big, it impacts so much of our city and so much of our lives. This is also a high priority. Unfortunately, like the budget, what we have found is very troubling. The problems are much worse than I think anyone believed. So I said for the last 9 months that there may be some serious design issues, some implementation challenges for this project. And unfortunately, we're finding that that is true to a larger extent than the public was made aware of. In short, now that we've reviewed these problems, this project is a bit of a lemon. And I want to go through exactly how this started and what the issues are now. So the first misstep that I think we're aware of as a community was a lack of input and so forth on the front end for the ART project. Now, we can't change that. It is what it is, but I want to acknowledge that that is probably the root cause of some of these issues. But today, the bus has left the station, in effect, and now art construction has already hammered its way through Central, and it's our responsibility to tell you where this project stands. The good news is that much of the pain in terms of the cones and the construction and the access to businesses is actually, for the most part, over. And that is a good thing. And so I hope people come back down to Central, they visit the local businesses, and they realize that by and large, for the most part, our main mother road, Route 66 corridor, is open for business. And so that's a good thing, and I want to make sure and highlight that. Now, no matter how we feel about this project or how much money has been spent on platforms and buses ordered and debts incurred and so forth, it is important that we understand that we have a ways to go. And so I'm going to identify a couple of categories of challenges that we have faced in terms of the different aspects of this project. So many of you have seen the lanes in the middle of Central that are marked bus lane or ART symbol across them. We know these as the dedicated lanes. And the design of the dedicated lanes has led to some traffic flow challenges. And so we're going to talk about some of those, but we have some issues with respect to the traffic engineering that need to be worked out. This includes the timing of the lights that enable the buses to cross intersections and how we make turns and U-turns along the route. In addition, there are challenges with the design of the platforms. This is causing mirrors of the buses to run up against the canopies of the station. The buses also do not line up evenly with the stations. That is both a horizontal unevenness, so there's a bump essentially, and there's also a gap that is creating issues with respect to ADA and usability. But I also want to emphasize that that is the nature of the ADA concerns. Beyond that, we don't think there are many. But as you'll see, the reason why those challenges exist are related to design issues with the buses and the platforms. And so just because they are not large issues does not mean that they're easy to fix. So my administration is committed to looking at this problem. This obviously, even though it's an issue of gap space between the platform and the bus, is a major issue with respect to fairness for people who are disabled and need to use public transport safely. Now, the biggest issue with respect to design actually has to do with the approaches to a couple of stations. And so some of the stations are situated as such that the bus has to make sort of an S maneuver to get into the stop that requires cutting across current lanes of traffic that is basically just not workable. So we are going to have to re-traffic engineer at least 2 stations, maybe others. And this again is to maintain not only usability of the line so that the driver can actually drive it appropriately, but also, of course, public safety. And in addition, there are lots and lots of minor issues that are affecting some of the stations and some of the routes. But especially at this point, I want to focus on some of the more major issues. And that leaves me to the second category of challenges we're facing. These are with the buses themselves. So firstly, we ordered 18 buses, and they were supposed to be here by October, and Lawrence is going to go over some of these dates and deadlines. We have only received 9, and there are maintenance issues with several of those buses. We've been in communication with the bus company under contract, and we are seeking a resolution to these issues. We will not sign any final release of any contractor until all obligations have been met, and especially with the buses, they are completed and functional for our city. Now, the buses, we're meeting with the bus company in the next few weeks. We're going to talk about sort of the different series of meetings that we're having, but these buses also have different charging issues, and so we're going to talk about that a little bit too. Now, I do also want to talk about funding. Of course, I want to stand up here and say the check is in the mail. It's not. And we need to be honest with folks. We need the appropriation bill to pass at the federal level, and then we need to work with FTA to actually get the check cut. We have 2 meetings this month, both regionally and nationally in DC, to work with them on those issues, but now we are also correlated to what happens in Congress. So the other thing I want to mention about the buses, I touched on the recharging issue, but the buses right now, the system is not operational. And this has to do with challenges with respect to the calibration and charging of the chargers and the batteries and the buses. And until the safety standards are met, and until we are sure that the buses can actually do what they're going to do, we do not have a predictable timeline in terms of when ART is going to be operational. And that's just a reality of the challenges. So lastly, we understand that people in Albuquerque are wondering, when is ART going to be up and running? When is it going to be fully functional? And that is a very fair question, and I have the same question. Now, I know this, that the previous administration told the public it would be done by the end of their term. And in reality, it would be unrealistic to give a firm completion date. There have been too many issues that we found, too many issues to tackle, and too many players and contractors involved at this point to be able to give a definitive date. And at the end of the day, there have already been too many broken promises with this project, and we're not going to make any more. So until these issues are resolved and our community can use ART safely and the project can be operational, and this hopefully at some point can be an asset for our city, we are going to have to continue working on these problems. So now that I've shared with you the challenges on this project, this may not have been the project that individuals wanted, that citizens wanted. Or it might have been something that you really wanted, or you might have been on the fence. But either way, regardless of which end of the spectrum you're on, whether you're on city council, or whether you're in the new administration or the old administration, or just don't care, our city has to come together and make this project work. And so my administration is working to turn this lemon into lemonade. Before we are able to roll out this project, it needs to be functional and safe at every turn. And to go over some of the additional details, I'm going to ask our COO, Lawrence Rael, to give us an update on some of the other aspects of the project and their status. Lawrence?